Welcome back to the Wrestling Chop Shop. As you see the man on the screen, Bret the Hitman Hart. Today we are having a overrated, underrated debate. Let's get it started. I'm gonna let the guests introduce themselves. Start with Alex, and let them know who you are. Let them know what side you guys are on as well, because it's got to be known. Matter of fact, got this right here.
Um,
Bada
I
boom.
think
There we go.
I don't think I have to introduce myself. I think my nickname speaks for itself on who I'm representing, man. But I am against Bret the Heart, man. And if y'all know who I am, my name's Alex Vataloco. Y'all can follow me on Alex Vataloco on TikTok and on Instagram. I really don't post much on Instagram, so just follow me on TikTok.
And I am PettyEndo 89. As y'all can see, I am the Bret Hart mark of TikTok. And I'm happy to have this debate. You can follow me on Instagram is PettyEndo 89, just like Alex. I don't do much on Instagram, but TikTok, PettyEndo 89. I've actually got a picture of myself photoshopped as the man we're debating about. So let's get it.
Before we get into this, I just have one question. How was it meeting Bret, man?
It was actually really short because it was a long line, but it was cool,
Yeah,
and he was able to sign
yeah,
the poster that I got.
yeah.
But that's a story for another day. But it was
Hey,
really cool. He was really nice. I just
hey,
didn't get to talk to him very long.
yeah, I was gonna ask you that before the debate heads aside. As a fan to another fan, like I said, it must have been surreal for you to meet someone that's your idol.
Oh yeah,
Let's call it how it is, man. Is
yeah,
your idol? I mean, you had the fortunate to do it. I unfortunately will never get that luxury and
yeah,
blessing to meet Eddie.
yeah.
But you, the fact that you got to meet your favorite wrestler of all
Yeah.
time, bro, I'm pretty sure it was a surreal moment that you were excited about.
Oh, it was huge, and I have to, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly. Technically, you're the reason that even happened because I went to WrestleMania with Malik, and how did I find
Hmm.
Malik? You. So technically, I met the man because of you. So
Oh
thanks,
well,
bro.
I know you told
Well,
me backstage that I was one of the content creators that inspired you to do this, and
Yeah,
to me
yeah,
personally, bro, that's kind of surreal to me because everyone else that I've met says Axel, Mitri, Malik, and the fact that it's the other way around because like I've said it personally multiple times, I got into TikTok because of those three individuals, Mitri,
yeah,
Malik,
yeah.
and Axel, and the fact that now it's my turn to be on that step of the plate, bro. It's actually a blessing and an honor that you got to experience that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always honored and blessed, and just happy to be here. And I'm ready to finally get to debate one of my favorite TikTokers of all time, and a very great individual.
all right. Now that we got the handshakes and hugs out the way,
Ah,
let's go.
let's go.
First category we're going to talk about. We're going to go back and forth. So, Alex, you will go first, and then Petty, and then on the next category, Petty will go, and then so on and so forth.
Alrighty, so what's the first category, Axel?
First category, I mean, come on. We got to talk about that character work, right?
What character work? Like, here's what I gotta say about him. Here's what I gotta say. The nickname is cool. Let's call it spade to spade. Bret the Hitman Hart. But my question is, what makes him the Hitman? Like, I don't. What? Like I've said it multiple times. What's his character? Me good at wrestling? To me, that doesn't suffice. Me personally, that's never sufficed enough. I know a lot of people watch wrestling specifically for the wrestling, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. You see, who is the person behind the moves, behind the skills? You can be as amazing and technical all you want, but if there's no character behind the person that does all the stuff, to me it's insignificant because everyone needs a persona. I hate to use this person as a comparison, but his predecessor, Hulk Hogan, we
Mhm.
knew he was dog water in the ring, but he made up for it with the character work because his character matched his in ring style. He was this overpowering, Superman made in America type of style mofo that everyone resonated for. As to me with Bret Hart, all I saw was a cat that knew how to wrestle, but that was it. Like to me, he never gravitated me towards his persona. So I'm like, why should I care to like this guy?
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would say character work is one of the things that Brett sort of lacked, but to look at it, the way I look at it is this: when he became a singles competitor, top guy, whatever you want to call it, what made him special was sort of the in ring and things of that nature. I think what made they had to sort of build certain things around him. So like the sunglasses is a prime example, because that was supposed to be like their trademark thing. The backstory with that is he was so frightened of the camera when he was with the Heart Foundation that he would put on a pair of Ray-Bans. And then 1989, the year I was born, ironically, is when they came with the sunglasses. And I'd put this on Brett and the WWE, and I can give Alex his flowers for this, is what I always felt like the Hitman persona was: I'm taking this guy down, I'm going after this guy, I'm going after this guy, I'm going after this guy, I'm going after this guy. This guy's getting a sharpshooter, this guy's getting a sidewalk slam or Russian leg sweep. So it was more about the opponents that he was going after, because he kind of had to build himself up kind of not nonchalantly, differently than his predecessors and those like it. So
that's what I was gonna say. But to counter that offer as well, a babyface character, his objective is always to be like, okay, I'm gonna stop this bad guy at all costs. Right. But each of them put in their different flair and personality to do so. Like I said, Hogan was this blue-blooded American love for the heroes. The person that succeeded Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was the blue-collar redneck that beat up the corporate America and said F you and flipped everybody off. The Rock, when he was a babyface, he was this arrogant jock that he knew he was the best, but he had to kick somebody's ass to prove it, such and such. Whereas Bret Hart, I'm like, if you're just a guy that's gonna kick someone's ass, that's not enough character work for me. Yes, you can do the sharpshooter. Yes, you can do these moves, bro. But I'm like, there has to be a substance behind the moves that you do.
Okay, fair enough. And I would also, the thing that I think kind of helped him, because we can't agree that the character work was not as good as it should have been, was the era that he was wrestling in. Because after Hulk Hogan, after a lot of these guys, like the character work for a lot of those guys was kind of, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was all the way lacking, but it wasn't the same. So it then became, it was more about the wrestling and a little bit less about the character. Now, obviously that changed, with Stone Cold and guys like that. Like the Attitude Era kind of scrapped that, but that New Generation era, they kind of didn't go with that. So that's kind of why he meshed in that era. If you put the Bret the Hitman Hart in the original Golden Era, because he won the championship at the end of the Golden Era, then it probably would have looked a lot more stale than it was. But because he was in the New Generation era, where there weren't that many menacing characters, you had the Undertaker. Now, somebody else I met at WrestleMania. Okay, cool. Shawn, it took a few years for him to get in his character. Okay, you had Razor, but then the problem with Razor was that a lot of the Razor feuds and things of that nature, they were too fast. So he could cut good promos, and he had the ladder match that we've all watched and appreciated. But outside of that, like, there wasn't a lot of buildup for a lot of those guys. So that's kind of how Bret somewhat kind of got to stand out, because of the era that he was wrestling in.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also had people like you said, Undertaker's promos matched his persona. So did Razor Ramon, and as well as Shawn Michaels. I get that they were in an era where it was still diminishing, where everyone focused on the wrestling, but also at the same time, they needed to realize from the past that we just can't be guys that just wrestle. Like we need to bring our gravitas, because at the end of the day, WWE primarily is entertainment. It is primarily entertainment more than anything else. It's entertainment with choreographed combat.
Right.
And if there's no character, if the protagonist has no personality, how are we supposed to relate to him and sympathize and root for him? That's where I never rooted for Bret Hart, because I'm like, okay, you want me to believe he's a protagonist, but what makes you the good guy other than you high-fiving the crowd and you giving your glasses to kids? To me, that's not enough for a character substance.
Well, and I would also what I'll also bring up is the storylines and the characters that you're working with make a big difference. And I felt like the ball was dropped when he won the championship and when he had his first run, because Yokozuna did not talk. So even though he kind of beat him up a little bit, and then there was that whole WrestleMania 9 debacle, you really didn't get to see much of that. I felt like when they paired him with Owen in '94, that's where you kind of saw the the kind of sympathetic character, things of that nature, because Owen was the I'm jealous of you, I hate you, this is all that. The problem, and we'll get into Mike's skills in the moment, was that the problem I had that I wish that they could have capitalized on was something so serious, because we didn't really have too many brother feuds, was put something down for the champion that he can sort of clap back with. Like SummerSlam 94 is a prime example. It would have been a really good promo, but just the energy wasn't there, and it frustrated me because this was a big moment.
Not to cut you off, but since we're on the subject, and it is your turn, let's talk about the promo skills.
All right. Well, I think it's pretty. If we talk about guys who, with their promo skills and whatnot, Brett himself will admit that his were not the greatest. Some like my mans would say would put you to sleep. What I would add to that once again was the era that he was over in at that time. You didn't have a lot of guys. You didn't have too many that their mic skills was what pushed them over. The new generation kind of focused more on the in-ring. This is why they kind of went away from the Hulk Hogan's. They sacked Macho Man Randy Savage, which I damn sure didn't agree with. And it was more about, can you work in the ring? That's what made me a Brett fan to start with. I didn't as much care about in-ring mic skills until I became a teenager. I was more of, can you wrestle? If bell to bell, rope to rope, turnbuckle to turnbuckle, in-ring psychology, can you do that? If you can do that, all right. But the mic skills, for a lot of guys, including Bret Hart, were not as good. And then the guys that did have really good mic skills at that time didn't get top pushes. So it was kind of a seesaw, if that makes sense.
And here's what I have to say about that.
Here we go.
See, when you're wrestling, you have to hype up your match to the T, to the highest of T, so people can get invested in. I know, as you said so yourself, Bret Hart wasn't the most cunning linguist. Like, the way he spoke and the way he acted, I'm sorry, and you can get upset the way I said it. To me, and I'm gonna sound like an asshole doing this, and I did this with my friends a couple nights ago. You can't be considered one of the greatest of all time if all you say on a consistent basis is, I'm the best there is, the best there was. I think I have emphysema. Like, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't. Like I said, the catchphrase he had, I will give him that. But like I said, individuals that were in the new generation era, Mr. Perfect, hell, his brother Owen was a better cunning linguist. These individuals hyped up the matches with their linguist, their promo skills, or hell, if they had a manager, the manager hyped them up to a T.
Mouthpiece. Yeah.
They needed a mouthpiece. No matter what, yes, the new generation era was mainly specifically about the wrestling, but at the same time, that's another thing that was at fault for it. You had to promote yourself. You just can't go out there and expecting to enjoy your match. I'm like, why the hell are you fighting for? That's where your promo skills come into play. Where you're gonna be like, I'm doing this because I'm gonna whoop your ass, kick your ass, and make you my bitch. Whatever you want to say, or the baby face. I'm here to protect the honor of the fans. Yada yada yada.
Right.
Something like that. But with Bret Hart, you never felt that his emotion was there because he had no character behind it. The people that get compared with each other at the same time at that new generation was Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. And up for debate for who was a better in-ring performer is always going to be up to debate. There's always going to be points ballot for that one. But what Shawn Michaels deferred himself with Bret Hart was he was this arrogant prick and his promo skills matched it up. And I'm like, okay, this is the guy I'm supposed to hate. He's arrogant. He's pompadourous. He's this. Bret Hart, why am I supposed to sympathize with you? Give me a reason why I'm supposed to sympathize with you other than you saying you're doing this for the fans. Because any babyface can say that, but the persona and their character performs it otherwise. So with those promo skills, Bret Hart, for me, was arguably one of the worst of his time.
Now I'm gonna have to make Alex say some nice things. Now we're gonna go to the next category.
Whoa. Let me.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Want to rebut?
Let me just off of his last point. There's two things. Number one, don't ever feel bad about giving me Bret Hart slander. Listen, I used to be 600 pounds, and I can tell you this right now.
Oh
There's
shit!
two things.
Congratulations on your shit, bro. No,
All right,
honestly,
thanks, bro.
good job on
Thanks,
that,
bro.
brother.
There's two things that are not new to me: Bret Hart slander and fat jokes. So and what I would say with Sean is this, and I actually had a debate with my cousin about this before I got on. The character work was there, and I do think Sean is a better wrestler than Bret Hart overall. But I also felt like the promo skills for both of the guys were kind of tingering until 97 because
you know what? Actually, I can see where you're coming from in the 90s. I know, you know what? That I won't hinder you over that. You're correct.
Yeah. So like that, and like that was one of the things that, you know, when it came to Mike's skills at that time, it's like the guy, and I always felt bad about this. The guys that I felt like should have gotten more of a push were the guys that could talk, but we were left with, you know, Razor never won a championship. Diesel couldn't talk, but he had the title for a year. You know, they tried to push Lex Luger to the moon. We all know how that worked out. So that when you put those two in it, it was like, okay, can you give me a great match? Because obviously what you're saying ain't really killing the box office, so to say. But I would say up until 97, I would put them on the same path road. But I do understand what you're saying, though. Yes, sir.
No, yeah. Alrighty. This is the only segment I promise you is gonna be positive, but also, you know, I'm gonna have some rhetorics on this.
Okay.
In-ring technician, arguably one of the best of all time. No one can touch him when it comes to the in-ring masterclass that he has. Like, honestly, no. No one can touch that he was an in-ring technician. So when it comes to his matches, and I'm going to be 100% honest, there's some matches that I think are astonishing. Him versus his brother at WrestleMania 10, arguably what I think is the greatest WrestleMania opening of all time.
I agree.
WrestleMania opening match of all time, and arguably one of the greatest sibling rivalry matches of all time.
I agree.
But also, on the other hand, there is such thing as too much technical wrestling. And that's where the most divisive match in Bret Hart's career, where people will think it's one of the best, and then there's me, where I think it's the embodiment of mediocrity, and I don't think it aged well specifically.
I think I know exactly where you're going with this.
WrestleMania 12.
Yep. I knew you were going to say that.
The 1 hour Iron Man match. Those two had a technical masterclass, but it was so slow, so dragged down. There was nothing, you know. There were no moments where it was like a boom, 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 boom. Because the fact that they ended a 1 hour match and a time limit draw was such a drag. I'm not knocking them for their technicality, but sometimes being too technical can lose the appealing to the fans. To me personally, there are way better Iron Man matches that WWE has produced. For me personally, I know a lot of people credit or think that the first Iron Man match is considered the best, but me personally, Bayley versus Sasha was better.
Yeah.
Hot take for me, John Cena versus Randy Orton at Bragging Rights 2009 was better because the story was there. But for me there. And as far as in-ring technical masterclass, he is one of the best. The only other people that I would put him on that pedestal, the first person, I loathe this man to a T. This man is the disdain I have for this man is repulsive. It's not the character, it's the genuine human being. Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
That is one person. And then the second one, believe it or not, it's not Bryan Danielson or Zack Sabre Jr. for you marks. It's not. I'm going to say sorry, it's not those are the two. It's someone that doesn't get enough credit for his technical masterclass, and that's Dean Malenko.
Yes.
Those are two individuals that I feel are on par or on occasion superior to Bret Hart when it comes to technical masterclass. Those three are in a category of their own as arguably the three greatest technical wrestlers of all time. So yeah, as far as in-ring skills, technical wise, Bret Hart is one of the best. But as far as to be an adapter, try to put in some brawling, try to put in some high flying, he wasn't able to do that, which is the only knock that I'll give him to. He wrestled one style and one style only, and he was the best at it. But at the same time, sometimes that style of wrestling can be a drag, and you gotta spice it up a bit, add a different types of arsenals or movesets into what you already mastered. It doesn't have to be too much, just enough to where people can be like, "Oh shit, I've never seen Bret Hart do this," because people expect hammer lock, arm drag takedown, the sharpshooter, or a pile driver, or the middle rope, forearm drive, and that's pretty much it. And it gets repetitive and redundant that people get annoyed and tired of it.
Very good points, my man. Very good points. When it comes to how I basically break down like tops of wrestling is I do it in different categories. Like Sean,
Exactly.
as I've mentioned, is the greatest overall because there is nothing he can't do. I'm
I
so
will
happy.
debate. I will debate Sean with somebody else.
Okay.
That's Eddie. For me, Eddie above Sean when it comes to the
That's
overall.
A juicy debate. That's a juicy debate. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
My buddy would say RVD if he's watching, but that's a different
Yeah.
story. But so I've never put him in, like the overall. I've put the technicals. So I would, him, Dean Malenko, who I mentioned in a video. I think I stitched Renee when I was talking about him. Yes, CB. That's as much as I'll say about him. I feel the same way about him as you do. One guy that I bring up only and he's actually going to go into one of my points in a second, only because he was all technical, is Bob Backlund. Which honestly, it's funny you mentioned the WrestleMania 12 match. Bret Hart's worst match ever was WrestleMania 11 with Bob Backlund, which was so painful because they had just had one of the greatest technical wrestling matches ever at Survivor Series 94. So it was a complete 180, but it goes to the point you just made, a lot of repetitive. Plus, you kind of had a somewhat drunk Roddy Piper in the ring and who messed up the spot at the end. So that certainly didn't help. So when I look at the in-ring skills, they're right up there. And then sort of the in-ring psychology. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he's actually the first wrestler ever in the history of the WWE to go through a table. And it was his idea. So there were things that he was sort of bringing. The problem was that era, that was when they were trying to water it down. Prime example, the return match of Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, the ladder match. I heard Diesel talk about this. They had to water it down so much to the point where like the things they did at WrestleMania 10, they couldn't do at SummerSlam 95. So they kind of had to water that whole thing down. So it also depended on his opponents too. Because like you mentioned Mr. Perfect earlier. I stand on this, and I think you and I low-key argued. You said that his greatest match was against Steve Austin. I say Mr. Perfect at King of the Ring 93, hands down. And in that match, you saw the hammer locks, but then Perfect was one of the greatest sellers, and he could just feed off of it. A better Shawn Michaels match for you to look at if you don't particularly care for WrestleMania 11 would be Survivor Series 92, which is when they were both kind of coming up, but they were still kind of, sort of figuring it out. So when it comes to the in-ring skills, obviously it's up there. I wish that he had a few more opponents that brought more of the creative juices out of them, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But like, I do agree with you in the sense that it did get a little bit redundant, but it also depended on the opponent because when he found crazy ways to make matches good. Yokozuna, Diesel, Razor.
That's where I'll give him the plus because well, I'll give the Bret Hart the plus because it takes two to tango when it comes to a match. No matter what people say, it'll always take two to tango. And the way his style, he adapted to that to what his opponent was, which that's why I find other matches that he had more enjoyable. Like you said, him with Yokozuna, I find a little bit more enjoyable. The reason I didn't find Bret and Shawn at WrestleMania 12 that enjoyable is because they try to out technical each other.
Yes.
For an hour. If the match was 35 minutes at the most, and they ended the last fall, like the last 10 seconds of that match, I would have been perfectly fine. I would have been, solid match, great technical match. But the fact that it was an hour and it got dragged for as long as it did, it hindered me because it was too much technical wrestling. And it's not just to knock at Bret. I'll do the same thing with Lucha Libre. If I see too many high spots, I get exhausted because they outdid themselves here, they did outdid themselves here. Now I'm like, let me breathe.
The one thing I will somewhat defend the WrestleMania 12 match on from Brett's perspective is the fact that this is, I mean, only guy I know that ever wrestled a whole bunch of 1 hour matches in his career is the Nature Boy Ric Flair back in the 80s.
Yeah.
They didn't really do that in the WWE because of time constraints. But the only reason I found it so impressive, was because that was, if I remember correctly, that was his 20th year in the business. So for you to have the stamina to go an hour, especially against a guy who's a lot younger than you, that I think is a little bit better than you, I thought was a plus. And I thought the best part of that match, unfortunately, was when Tony Chimmel got accidentally kicked in the head.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's why I don't praise it as much as a lot of people do, because the most memorable spot of that hour time was when when Tony Chimmel got his knock rock, bro. And then the overtime is what people recognize the most.
The most, yeah.
Just the overtime, but the whole abundance of that hour wasn't that memorable for me. Like I said, in technical wise, he's arguably one of the best. I'll always flip between him, Malenko, and unfortunately Benoit. Those are the three that I'll always flip on who I think is the greatest technical wrestler of all time. You want to add Danielson there, fine, I'll add Danielson there. But the three for me will always be Malenko, Benoit, and Bret Hart for the three greatest technical wrestlers of all time.
You'll get no argument from me there.
Yeah.
And now that we talked about in-ring ability,
oh boy,
we
this is gonna be fun.
We're gonna talk about that draw power.
This is gonna be fun.
How are you I get it. Hogan and them left. Like, I get it 100% at the time. But but statistically proven, Bret Hart, much like Diesel, is considered one of the lowest drawing WWE champions of all time. He genuinely is, because with all due respect, how do you go from which I'll name the top guys: Hogan, Bret, Shawn, Austin, Rock, Cena, and Triple H, right? Those are those top guys that I can think of at the top of my head right now. Hulk Hogan sold out a 93,000 something, whatever they want to say nowadays, show when he was the WWE champion facing Andre the Giant, which WrestleMania 12. I looked at the attendance in that arena. It was only 18,000 people in a small arena in Anaheim. And I know what arena in Anaheim that is exactly. I know that. Yeah, I know that's the Toyota Center. I know that's it. And then we have Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Their biggest match was
Houston.
For them too was WrestleMania 17. They were in the Houston Astrodome. Mm-hmm. The biggest match that John Cena main evented was WrestleMania 28 with The Rock. Not only did they have a big arena, but they also, to this day, hold the biggest, pay-per-view, WrestleMania pay-per-view box office of all time. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm like, this is where I said, your in-ring skills and your character work matter as a performer. Because the way you promote the match is what sells out the show. I get it. They were in a recession of superstardom and building up stars again. But like I said, they had no issues in the 80s when they made Hulk Hogan go batshit crazy. They didn't have an issue with Roddy Piper making himself a character related to theirs. Same thing with Macho Man. I know they had those personas in the territories, but when they gave them that spotlight in WWE, they stole the show. And I feel like, WWE and the wrestlers of the new generation themselves were at fault because Vince was still living off the past, right? And at the same time, those wrestlers felt that like, oh, he doesn't think we're good enough, so let's just do whatever the hell. Whereas it should have been what the Attitude Era says, like, you know what? Fuck you. We don't need Hogan. We don't need Macho Man. We don't need this. We can be stars ourselves. We'll transform our personalities. We'll do this. We'll do that. And Bret didn't catch up with that. And that's how I feel that Bret Hart, where you're neutral and you understand where people come from, but there are a lot of Bret Hart fans that say, "Oh no, he's
Oh
the best
yes.
draw and he's the best
Oh
this."
yes.
I'm like, no, he's not. Like
He's not lying on that one.
the stats are there, the pay-per-view buys are there. He has one of the lowest pay-per-view buys of a WrestleMania
True.
in the 90s, one of the
True.
lowest ones. And I'm
True.
like, you can't call him the one of the best ever if he never drew that much money for the company he's supposed to be drawing money for.
So, I'm glad you brought up the recession, because that does carry huge weight. And I'm actually going to drop a hot take in a second. But you brought up like Hogan, the 80s, this and that, WrestleMania 3. I always felt like that was more about Andre than it was about Hogan. That's just my opinion. And hot take, and y'all can get on me, and folks in the comments, I'm going to say it. Me and Malik argued about it WrestleMania this year. I think WrestleMania 3 is one of the most overrated WrestleManias of all time, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Hey, no, because I will agree with you to that, because besides Macho Man and Savage, besides Macho Man and Steamboat, and Hogan flipping the Giant, there's nothing else memorable about WrestleMania. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
All right. Now, as for the draw power or the lack thereof, what people got to understand about that recession is it all goes back to 1992. The worst PR business year. That's the year the steroid trial, the Ring Boy scandal, it all came to a head. So then what Vince was left with was, you just look at the roster and you look at who was on the pay-per-view at a WrestleMania 8 compared to a WrestleMania 9, and a lot of it dropped off. So then they were trying to build new stars, but then they were trying to do it pretty fast. Like Yokozuna was in the main event of WrestleMania 9 not 6 months after coming into the promotion. So they constantly had to keep moving and trying to bring new people in, and it just didn't translate to dollars. So then what ended up happening was that Bret Hart, and I'll say this, and you talked about Bret Hart fans. Trust me, I know what you're talking about. I came from Facebook, where I used to get into it with a lot of Canadian Bret Hart fans. I know the fans you're talking about that think he's I know what you mean. I trust me, I've been there. So what it came down to with the pay-per-views and things of that nature was, more and more they kept trying to put pieces that shouldn't have been there. So then it took more off the meat of the bone. I'll give you a prime example. They had the King of the Ring was pretty good in 93. It was the first that they had on pay-per-view. They go to SummerSlam, and they try to build up Lex Luger, who was on his way to being the number 2 heel, to this American original, the bus, all that, and it didn't work. And they kept doing stuff like that. So then the champion is supposed to be the pinnacle. The champion is supposed to be the guy that puts it over. But part of that is what you keep putting on the card along with it, it doesn't help. So it's like, okay, you can have Bret have a 5-star match at the end of the night, but it's not going to draw because you guys keep putting in these stars and storylines that you're not doing very well, that are not fitting. And then, like you brought up Diesel. One of the reasons why Diesel was one of the worst drawing champions is because they made him champion with no buildup. Literally, he turned babyface at Survivor Series 94. Not even 5 days later, he's champion. You want to see one of the wildest things you'll ever see? Go watch their match at Royal Rumble 95 and listen to the reaction of the crowd when Diesel comes to the ring. This is his first pay-per-view as champion. You hardly hear anything because the fans had not grasped the fact there was no buildup. And that was a big problem in that era. Like, they tried to get it with Shawn later on, the boyhood dream come true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you had a track record of bad pay-per-view after bad pay-per-view after bad pay-per-view. So then by the time you started getting really good, guys that you've been building up, nobody wants to see it. That's why a match like that, which probably should have been in a 50,000, seat stadium, was only in a stadium of 18,000.
Yeah, it's another thing too, where the drawing power matters. That's where the character and the promo work coming through fruition. See, I've always said this: the things that matter to make a wrestler a star is in-ring skills, character work, and mic skills. If two out of those three criterias supersede one or the other, you are fine. You are gonna make it as a star. Hulk Hogan, I'm gonna say it to this day, garbage in the ring, but his character work and mic skills made up for it. Bret Hart only had it's all good. Bret Hart only had good in-ring skills with no character work and no mic skills or minimal mic skills. Stone Cold Steve Austin, even before his injury with Owen, he had exceptional character work, exceptional mic skills, and exceptional promo skills. The Rock had mediocre wrestling skills, but over the top character and wrestling work. Oh, did we lose him?
Well,
did we lose connection?
If that's the case, then can you hear me?
I can hear you, bro.
Oh, wait, nope, he's back.
Oh, he's back?
My bad. Go ahead, my brother. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, as I was saying, the criteria for wrestling, at least for me personally, is in-ring skills, mic skills, and character work. And like I mentioned, other people, I was saying The Rock, the most mediocre wrestling skills. I know it's a hot take, but bite me, The Rock fans. Character work and mic skills, over the top crazy. John Cena, I don't care what anyone says. Solid in-ring skills, amazing mic skills, and amazing character work. That's why he's one of the prime examples of being the top guy for such a long period of time. Mm-hmm. That's where another drawing power comes. You need to have this, not an over-the-top character or something that the audience will resonate and be like, you know what, this is the guy that represents the company to a T. I'm going to buy his merch. I'm going to buy his stuff. Or the other way around. I want to see this guy lose because I want to see this other guy get to the top. Whereas with Bret Hart, for me, I'm like, am I really going to get hurt or annoyed if this guy loses his pedestal? Whereas people like Hogan at their time, Austin, The Rock, and Cena, if they lost their pedestals, a lot of fans would get hurt. Like, no, this is my guy. This is my guy. Whereas to me personally, I'm the heart. I'm like, am I really going to get upset if this guy loses? Because he hasn't given me enough substance for me to believe that this guy is money.
And I think the problem that came with that, which is why, he didn't get to that part, is like the fans kind of changed, and then obviously they changed back, when Austin, Rock, and things of that nature. Yeah. The thing that I would have people understand about Bret Hart is that the things that you don't see are the things that would help his build up things with his contributions and things of that nature.
Yeah,
people don't see that. So if the argument is just his in-ring mic skills weren't as good or his drawing power, I mean, nobody drew in that era.
No, I don't know one drew in that era, but at the same time, if the company invests in you so highly, you got to do everything in your power to try to elevate the company to the highest degree. Hence why, they consider you the guy in the draw. Whereas the other performers that I mentioned, and when they threw him the bone, be like, you're the top guy. What are you going to do to carry us to the mountaintop?
And what I'm saying is, go ahead.
They say, we're Hulk Hogan, what you going to do, 24-inch pythons. The Rock, if you smell, yada, 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 the Stone Cold Steve Austin, that's the bottom line. And then John Cena, the champ is here, you can't see me, a decade of fucking dominance.
Yeah, and that's the thing that as a Bret Hart fan does hurt when you look at it from the spectrum. But the flip side to it is the contributions that he was making off camera, a lot of people don't see.
Contributions aside, which is amazing, because if we're calling it spade to spade, the person that's contributed so much to the business is Cena.
Yeah. I would say after him. Yeah, absolutely. So
yes,
that's the part that people don't see.
Yeah, when I mean drawing power, I'm focusing mainly on when the lights and cameras are on. Mm-hmm. What they do backstage and all that stuff, it's whatever besides the points. Once the lights and cameras are on and the limelights are pointed on you, I feel like, if the company puts so much responsibility on you to be the top guy, go out of your way to prove and defer yourself from everybody else. Where unfortunately, Bret Hart didn't have that luxury, because he was in a group of people where I'm like, oh, I'm or where he pretty much calls himself the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you had people like Perfect, you had people like Razor, you had people like Sean in there, you had his brother Owen, who can arguably can be considered great performers in their own right. So to me, there is I'm like, you can't call yourself the best when you have other people like this, and you can't do this.
Yeah.
You don't defer yourself from other people because you're saying you're good, but I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, Razor Ramon is this Cuban aficionado. Your brother Owen, your brother Owen was the obnoxious spoiled brat that fucking did that. But yeah.
And one other thing to point out, and I'm certainly not going to try to make excuses for him, is that if you look at the better part of 2 years, they kind of slid off because he was basically the top guy 93, 94. 95, they kind of had him play second fiddle to Diesel. So, like, you know, that's where he would finish up feuds with like Jerry Lawler, who I consider to be one of the greatest heels of all time. And then, you know, Hakushi, which is a slept on feud. So things of that nature. So then that kind of sullied it even more where it's like, well, now he's not even the champion. So now it's like, okay. And then we're looking at these other guys and give Sean credit because Sean, after his vacation, was finally given his first real babyface turn as a singles, and you know, for the most part built on it because pretty much after WrestleMania 10 he didn't do much wrestling in the ring in 94. He was more of Diesel's manager and things of that nature. So when I look at it, I hear what you're saying, and like the last couple of years before 97, which is where the in-ring mic skills and character work finally fruitioned itself, then he was starting to backslide on the card too. So, you know, which led to the worst WrestleMania match he had of all time. So that played a role in it too. But I do agree in the sense that more could have been done, and I think it was a two-way street. I think the WWF put way too much emphasis in guys that they shouldn't have too early. So then it hurt the other guys that were trying to push the narrative of we're the next generation, we're going to try to do the same things, but it's like it all has to work together. So when it doesn't, and Brett has admitted this, like, you have to take the brunt of the responsibility because you're the top guy. Now you are putting contributions in the back end, which the WWE is still eating off of, and we'll get to that. But I do see your point in the sense that when you're in that position, you have to try to maximize it to the best of your ability. And unfortunately, a lot of opportunity was lost.
Speaking of opportunity, this will be the last round, the last category. Petty, you will begin this last round. Let's talk about that main event longevity.
Okay. So main event longevity is a tricky one with Brett for the reasons I just said. So really, as a main event guy, he was the main event guy for 1, 2, 3, I'd say 4 out of 6 years as a singles. 4 out of 6 years. His pay-per-view, what's the word I'm looking for? His pay-per-view resume does kind of speak for itself on the positive and sort of the negative side, because there were pay-per-views that he was in where he was the top guy where things somewhat turned out well, and then there were others that didn't. Long term, a lot of the great matches that we talk about with Bret Hart are in that span. So it somewhat does kind of help his narrative, where he can be compared to some of others. But the time frame, like, he didn't have the time frame of a Hulk Hogan, who had what, 8, 9 years consecutively of pay-per-view. You know, Cena was, I can't even count how many years that Cena was the main event guy. So I want to say that he tried to, you know, maximize his potential to the best of his ability, but at the same time there were some stinkers too, and those count too.
No, so yeah, at the same time, like I said, yeah, the main event longevity, Bret Hart, yeah, because when you see him as the top guy, people remember him, even though, you know, he wasn't in the main event title scene I mean, he was with the WWE titles, and he was still considered a main guy. Me personally, I'll say that for me, Bret Hart was a top guy between '93 and before he left in '97. That's 4 years of doing it, and believe it or not that many. Believe it or not, even Rock and Austin haven't been top guys for that long. Austin was from '98 to 2001, and then
Right.
Rock was '99 to 2002.
Three, yeah.
Or three, yeah, 2002. Because after that, he wasn't the top guy; he was just a part timer. So those are
right.
those two. So when people say that people say, oh, The Rock and Austin had longer longevity as a top guy than Bret Hart. That's not true. Bret Hart from '93 to '97. That's 4 years. The only people that have been top guys for that long were Hulk Hogan from 1985 to his departure, which was 92.
93.
93. That's 8 years.
Yeah.
John Cena from 2005 to 2015. That's a decade.
Yeah.
So yeah, for main event longevity, Bret Hart is up there where not that many people have that luxury of being a top guy for X amount of years. You don't have to be involved in the world title scene to be a main event guy, but I'll give Bret Hart a pro that he held it for 4 years. But unfortunately, due to the circumstances of Montreal, we didn't get to enjoy it after that. But yeah, that's one of the ones, another longevity that I would say, that he did what he did for the time frame that he did.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, it's kind of, it was also kind of hard to believe him as the main event guy when, the roster was, in a fucking, in a resurgence, it was dog water. So at the same time, this is where I'll sympathize with Bret that the reason he wasn't a believable good guy or a believable top guy in many cases, he didn't have the right adversary to tangle with. Because let's be honest, his rivalry at the time was Shawn Michaels. That was his greatest rival in there. But how often, how consistently, how boring would it be if from 1993 to 1997, every time we just saw Shawn versus Bret, Shawn versus Bret, Shawn versus Bret? It's getting repetitive from a certain rivalry in the modern era of wrestling where a lot of fans are getting upset about it because, the storyline never ends. So, that's what I'll give Bret Hart that. I'm like as much as I dislike him for my reasons as, as the overall, character performer, not the real life individual.
Mm-hmm.
I do sympathize for what he was dealt with. But for me personally, like I said, if someone gives you that responsibility, do as best as you can, or go over the top to prove yourself that there's a reason why they gave it to you, and not sporadically. Like, oh, we're gonna put you in the title scene for a year and a half, and 2 years you're not gonna worry about it anymore. Oh, just kidding, we're gonna put it back. You know what? Never mind. And that's where I felt like Bret and Shawn were in that category where they were just picking and choosing, like, when do you want to give him the title? Yep, nope, yep, nope, yep, nope, yep, nope.
Yeah, that was a big problem in that. And I think the thing that separates Bret and Shawn, and I've gotten into it with a couple of Shawn fans. I'm sure me and HB Bird will get into it about one day. Is the difference was, I felt like the difference was when it came to like the contributions was that the contributions of Bret Hart the company is still eating on the ladders, being the first real champion that was willing to work with the upcoming guys, because Hogan wouldn't do it. Hogan won back-to-back Royal Rumbles that he wasn't supposed to win just because it didn't work for him, brother. He's the one that found Steve Austin, because notoriously Vince did not watch any other promotion of his own except his own, with the exception of when Eric Bischoff was giving away his finishes. Then he sort of had to pay attention. So whereas with Shawn, they started the Click, which was kind of the opposite of adding value to the company. It actually caused more division in backstage factions like them and BSK and, the Backstage Heart Foundation, which didn't do any good and ultimately led to something like a Montreal. So, like that's the big thing. Like, anybody who don't like Bret Hart, it's fine. This is wrestling. There are certain wrestlers that I don't like. As long as, you're one of, and I know you are, because I've seen your comment section and I've seen you make your videos and you're awesome. As long as the things like that are brought to the table, then it's fair game to bring up the lack of in-ring character work, mic skills, the things that he could have done better.
Yeah.
Then it's fair game.
No, yeah, because as you say, as a lot of people know, when I do my stuff on TikTok, I have a persona. Like,
Yes.
if there's a wrestler I don't like, I go to the highest gravitas to a T to hinder those fans
Right.
on why I don't like them. So, like, yeah, like I'll be like, oh, I'll go on a comment section and be like, oh, Bret Hart's mid. They're like, no, he's not. Yeah, he's mid.
You
Or when or for a while when I'm like, oh, with Cody Rhodes as well, and all that stuff. But when it comes to like, if you put me on a platform like YouTube or a podcast or a debate, I'll be serious about why I don't like insert wrestler here, insert promoter here, because that's the whole purpose of it. TikTok is my character, it's my persona. I'm trying to be an instigator on TikTok. That's my character. I'm trying to instigate people. That's my thing. Whereas here,
you
you
do a
can see
good job
how
too.
where you as here you see how I'm having this
Oh,
civil debate with you. Other than me doing the Bret Hart has emphysema, but that's just neither here nor there, my
which was
guy.
which listen that's funny though. That's funny though. See,
Mhm.
you TikTok, like I would say, I came from Facebook, and one of the great things about TikTok that I appreciate is that the character limit in comments is limited.
Oh
Brother,
no,
if you only read some of the idiotic, misspelled, backhanded, dumbass comments that I used to read on Facebook,
oh no, believe
oh
I'm
my
in wrestling pages.
God.
I'm on Facebook wrestling pages, bro. I used to be in E-Feds, bro. I know what you're talking
Oh
about.
man. So
I
it
know
so
exactly what you're talking about.
so switching over to TikTok, it was like, someone will make a video here, make a video there. Okay, cool. Cool. All right. Say what you gotta say. If you need the whole 3 minutes, you have my attention. And
Mhm.
it makes a lot better. I'll tell you a funny
Mhm.
story since you want to talk about your character. I've been
Mhm.
waiting to tell you this story. I was coming home one night. I had worked an odd job that I didn't want to
Yeah.
work. I was tired. And I picked up my phone. Let's see what's going on TikTok. Well, who's the first person that pops up? You. And you're making a Bret Hart video. And I instantly slammed my phone down. I didn't even watch the video. I'm like, I'm tired of Alex Vacalock always talking about my man. I had me a little fit. So then I went to go unfollow you. I was like, I'm done with this. And then I saw that you were following me. I'm like, okay, let me calm down. Let me breathe. And then I went and read the comment section. And the best part about it, and this is why I stayed a loyal follower and a
Mhm.
friend and all that, is there was a guy in your comment section who basically said everything I would have said. And you were, having a conversation and you liked the comments and you were being
Mhm.
civil. So I was like, all right, all right. Calm your
No,
ass
yeah,
down, Petty. Calm
yeah.
your ass down. It
Eh,
ain't that deep.
Like if you bring rebuttals on why you like a certain wrestler, I'll back you up. But if you respond to me like, "Oh, tell me you don't know about wrestling," without telling me you don't know about wrestling,
L
that's
take.
where I'm gonna, go, or L take. That's where I'm gonna say this is why your mom should have swallowed you, or your dad splooged in the wrong hole. I'll
And
say
you
stuff like that. I say
you
stuff
will
like
do
that.
that.
I will
Alex,
do
You
I
will
hate
that.
do that.
Alex. I hate you right now.
No, no,
He,
You
yeah.
he
just you
does
just
do
gave
that.
you just gave MJ so much leeway. Now I'm gonna have to hear his mouth. I hate you.
Oh man. Yeah, well, this is well, you know what? And I'm glad that we finally got to have this conversation because
Yeah.
it was gonna have to happen eventually. But
No, no,
I see
yeah.
where you're
Eventually.
coming from.
Yeah, but hey, I'll tell you this one more statement though.
Yes, sir.
Oh man.
Uh-oh, here we go.
This one more statement. And my friends have heard me
Emphysema.
say this, and not emphysema. Emphysema is enough done for today. I would rather watch someone spread orange marmalade on rye toast than listen to a Bret Hart promo. That's all I gotta say.
Hey, and I will say this:
Yeah.
before 1997, he only had two good ones. So I'm not even knocking. He only had two: SummerSlam '92 and SummerSlam '95. That's it. That's
But I
it.
say, hey, this is why you're the Bret Hart fan, because to me, I'm like, he had good promos.
Two. He only had two.
Ah!
He only had two. The one before the Bulldog match was good, and then he had one on the fly before he faced Isaac Yankem. That was it. 94 could have been good, but he didn't put any
So,
energy into it. So I agree
his
with you.
his good promo was him doing one about a dentist.
Well,
Do
well,
them, do them. I'm like, Come on, but like right there, one of his good promos before the heel turn, he was talking to a dead kid.
If you watch it, it was pretty funny because he was kind of clapping at Jerry the King Lawler, who was on commentary. He was like, "Jerry Lawler, you can send a chiropractor or something like that." I'm just like, "Oh man, this is actually okay."
Hey,
all right, Bret.
The only memorable promo that I've ever seen of Bret Hart, shouldn't even be memorable, is for some reason when I was looking through it, he won the WCW United States Championship.
Oh.
And the brother dedicated it to a cat. This is where I'm like, no one can defend. For people that defend Bret Hart's mic skills, this guy looked at a feline and be like, "This is for you, Buttons or Mittens or whatever the cat's name was."
But damn.
Hey, that one, and then the funny one where he had I think he was the U.S. champion. And Gene Okerlund was trying to ask him about who his next opponent, and he was picking all the smaller lucha guys. He was like, "Yeah, I could see myself facing like the Ultimate Dragon. Yeah, he's pretty good. Like, don't sell him short." That was kind of funny. I was like, "All right, let's get to the wrestling because your mic skills, buddy. Come on now." But no matter what, that's still my man. I know who he is, and I know who he isn't.
Yeah, and for me, he'll always be the mid there is, the mid there was, and the mid there ever will be.
Hey, man, don't be disrespectful, Alex. Don't be disrespectful.
I mean, I guess there's no point in asking this question because I was gonna say, Alex, did your opinion change? And I guess not.
No, like I said, I have my opinions about Bret Hart, and the fact that I got to debate with someone civilly about someone that's a pretty well known big Bret Hart on the TikTok platform. Do I have even more newfound respect than what I had previously? Absolutely. Most definitely. But he's in the same category for me as Cody Rhodes. As good as he is, or as good as people find him to be, that's not going to change my opinion about it, because I'm not going to like a wrestler. If I don't like him, I'm not going to like him. And if you don't like the wrestlers I don't like, then all right, to each their own. But have a civil reason why you don't like that specific wrestler. With Bret Hart, like I said, I'm the type of fan that when it comes to a wrestler, I want him to have some sort of character, or at least some sort of microphone skills that'll have me invested in what he does. Because to me, the wrestling isn't enough. Whereas why Eddie Guerrero is a perfect example why I love him as a wrester. In-ring skills, out of this world, insane, crazy. Microphone skills, they're not the best, if I'm being completely honest. I'll own it to them. Not the best talker I've ever seen. But as far as character work, bro, this guy was a city slicker hustler. Pretty much got his way through line cheating and stealing, and him being Hispanic. That's one thing that resonated with me as well, which is why I love and respect him. When people don't like Eddie, I'll be like, "Tell me why you don't like him." If they're like, if one time I blocked the dude because he said, "Oh, I don't like him because he's Hispanic," and that kind of irritated me, so I blocked the guy.
Yeah, that's not good.
Give me a good reason. Give me a good reason why you don't like him.
Yeah, I love Eddie Guerrero. I'll tell you I'll tell you a crazy fact about him in a second. But me growing up, I was the opposite. I didn't give a damn about in-ring character work or mic skills growing up. I cared about, could you wrestle? Could you get bell to bell, turnbuckle, 4 ropes? Could you give me a match that when I, get through watching it, I look back and be like, damn, that was a good match. It wasn't until I got older that I realized, oh, wow, this actually matters. Fun fact, because you're the big Eddie Guerrero fan that I know. So my dad, who's no longer here, was a huge Eddie Guerrero fan. We used to debate, obviously I have a much more. I've always been a big Eddie respecter. Like when he turned heel in WCW and started wearing the black trunks, I love that. The salsa music, I love that. My dad could have went to the pay-per-view in San Francisco where he won the title, but he didn't go because he didn't think Eddie was going to go over. That was one of the craziest phone calls because I called him. I'm like, "Pops, you sitting down? I only want to talk to you." He could have been there to see Eddie win the championship, and he didn't go because he didn't think Eddie was going to go over. The Cow Palace. So but the fact that you were kind enough to share your opinions, and there are a lot of things I learned from what you were saying too that I can always go back and look. I don't make as many TikTok videos, but I will start to make more, and I'll hear opinions like that, and I'm always open for a debate.
No, so am I. Like I said, whether it's in the comments or if you want to go on another platform, hear my opinions or takes on stuff, like I told a lot of people, if you want my honest takes in some civil debate, maybe via DMs, the comments on TikTok, or if you have a YouTube platform, I'll debate you on there. I'll be more than happy to do so. But just know that the stuff that I say on TikTok of wrestlers that I don't like, don't take it way too seriously.
Right.
I've told every one of my mutuals and my friends that, you know, and they know that what I do on TikTok is to cause a reaction. Like, I'll have things that I take seriously, you know, that I'll do serious things about. But when it comes to, you know, wrestlers that I like or dislike, you know, I go over the top to a T where, you know, my goal is to garner a reaction, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
But if you want to debate about it, debate about it. But if you're gonna give me some ridiculous response and all that stuff, just know that I'm gonna troll the living life out of you.
You will, and I will. And as a Bret Hart mark, I will tell you, some of the videos that you do when it comes to him are fucking hilarious. I'll be laughing. I'll be like, man, that's pretty good.
To this day, what everyone says their favorite one was the one where I used the Animaniac songs, the countries of the world, and I put the most randomest wrestlers, and I ended it with Durag Vince.
I recall that. That was Alex. Alex is what we like to call an ass.
But I'm his ass because I'm like, without me, he would not have some sort of entertainment in his life.
Yeah, right. And that's why I had to make this happen. I had to. Sir. I'm mutuals with both of you guys, obviously.
Yes, sir.
So it had to be done. I enjoyed it. Hopefully the viewers enjoyed it. Hopefully, I know Alex's opinion didn't change. You know, he took a few words in, but you know,
I didn't expect it to. Like,
you know,
no, like I said,
it wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be authentic if he changed his opinion like that. No, stand on it.
No, like I said, I don't like them. I don't like him. He's not my particularly favorite wrestler. Like I said, to me personally, to this day, like I don't get the hype. I don't get the appeal. But am I gonna disrespect the wrestler like in real life? No. I'm only gonna do it on TikTok just to piss off fans because, you know, what they're not gonna meet me in person or square up. I know that for a fact.
No.
And that's why the next one, it's got to be a Roman one, right?
Oh, I'll be watching.
Malik, if you're watching this,
I'm calling you out, brother. We gonna have this Roman Reigns debate. That man overrated. He trash.
He's constipated.
He is constipated. He couldn't constipate his marriage.
And I will say it for the record. Of all the wrestling faction of fans, the Bloodline by far the most annoying I've ever dealt with.
Ooh,
the most annoying ever.
I dealt with Evolution.
Oof. I dealt with Evolution, the Horsemen, DX, NWO, Goldberg. Oh my God!
I've dealt with Evolution and Team Angle.
Team Angle too. But these Roman things, like I went to WrestleMania this year, and it took everything in me not to just go to the top of the stadium and just jump off. And I'm like, dude. And then Malik's co-host, not too long ago, he went viral. You saw that clip where he sat up there and said,
"Oh yeah,
top 5 right now." I'm just like, this is why I can't stand your fans.
I'm just waiting on the date and time. I'm supposed to have the debate with him on their podcast. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because I'll say this, because I won't be part of the debate. So I think if I can have 2 seconds, I'll just say this. I respect Roman Reigns, but if you look at the flag bearers of WWE, tell me I'm wrong about this. Is this dude not the most coddled, most walked through flag bearer ever? Did this dude not get the easiest road because Vince handpicked him from FCW. No other flag bearer in the history of the WWE can you look at and say, from developmental, I wanted to get everybody out of the way so that this dude could go to the top. CM Punk, you have to never mind the fact you're doing a 3-on-1, you have to make Roman look really strong. I'm just like, and his fans don't acknowledge that. No pun intended. So, get him, Axel. I will be waiting for that.
But that's for another episode again.
Yes, sir.
And I can't wait for Saturday. I can't wait till I go to SmackDown later in July. Whew,
Okay.
that's gonna be a fun interaction with them bum Roman fans, you know.
Yes,
But
sir.
Get there, please.
but I appreciate you both for coming out and doing this. I'll let you
One
guys
Already know,
shout
question.
out.
brother.
One
What?
question,
Yes, sir.
Alex, because I know you live in the Southern California area. Are you going to WrestleMania next year?
Is the Pope Catholic? Does peanut butter and jelly go together?
Hey, well,
Bruh,
good.
bruh,
I'm
bruh,
going to second year in
I'm
a
go,
row, so we'll meet
I'm
in person.
I'm going
Oh,
too, bruh.
sweet, bro. The more the merrier, because a lot of us are gonna try to leak up. A lot of us
Yes,
countries are
sir.
trying to link up
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I'm saving up money for sure for WrestleMania LA.
Petty, we
Yeah.
can hassle them Roman fans, man, because I'm
Oh
going too.
man,
So let's get it.
you already know. You already know. I got a special shirt I'm
Yeah.
designing just for Roman fans.
Yeah, I went to
So
LA
stay
for
tuned.
AEW. I can't wait to go to LA for WrestleMania.
But I'll
Yes,
let you
sir.
guys shout out your TikTok handles, let everybody know where they can follow you before we go.
Yes, sir.
Once again, guys, you know where to follow me. Alex Vato Loco on TikTok, Instagram, but Instagram is whatever, but mainly follow me on TikTok on Alex Vato Loco.
And as always, in Instagram, PettyEndo89.
Appreciate everyone who came out to watch. Until next time, Roman sucks.
Yes, sir.
Balls.